up, beautiful and amazing gentlemen? Welcome to the episode 9 of our podcast series. Today, we will explore the life and works of one of the most prominent Filipino hero and one of the most influential in the Philippine history, Jose Rizal. Specifically, we will be discussing his famous essay titled The Philippine A Century Hence that was written in 1889. So in this episode, we will take closer to the life works of Rizal. So sit back, relax, and go to your places as you listen to our discussion. Before we start, let us introduce ourselves. I am your host, Ferlie Jane Conte, and my co-host,
Miss Rosana Laika Eita Piru.
We all know that Jose Rizal is a man of many talents. He was a writer, a poet, a doctor, a linguist, and a revolutionary. He was born in 1861 in Calamba, Laguna, and he grew up in a family of farmers. Despite his humble beginnings, Rizal was able to study in some of the best schools in the Philippines and Europe. He was fluent in several languages, including Spanish, English, French, German, and Japanese. Rizal's travels and experiences abroad gave him a unique perspective on the Philippines and its places in the world. In The Philippine A Century Hence, Rizal wrote about the challenges that the country was facing at the time, such as poverty, corruption, and colonialism. He also predicted the future of the Philippines, which he believed would be a prosperous and independent nation.
We all know that Jose Rizal was a Filipino nationalist, writer, and a revolutionary who is widely considered the national hero of the Philippines.
Today, we will be focusing on his essay that published in La Solidaridad starts by analyzing the various causes of the misery suffered by the Filipino people. Reading through the essay of Rizal, one could say that the hero is not just a great writer but a great historian as well. His essay, The Philippine A Century Hence, presents a radical prophecy of Rizal of how the Philippines would be through the century. The Rizal's essay was divided into several sections, each of which tackle a different aspect of Philippine society. In the first section, he discussed the country's geography and climate, which he believed were ideal for agriculture and commerce. He also noted that the Philippines was strategically located in Southeast Asia, which made it a valuable trading partner for other countries. In the second section, Rizal talked about the Philippine history and culture. He praised the country's rich heritage and traditions. But he also criticized the Spanish colonial government for suppressing the Filipino identity. He believed that Philippines should embrace its own culture and language rather than adopting the culture and language of its colonizer. In the third section, Rizal discussed the country's economy. He noted that the Philippines was rich in natural resources such as timber, mineral, and fertile land. However, he also pointed out that the country was heavily dependent on agriculture. And lacked industrialization. He believed that the Philippines should develop its own industries and become self-sufficient. So in the fourth section, Rizal also talked about the country's political system. He criticized the Spanish colonial government for its corruption and efficiency. He believed that the Philippines should have its own government run by Filipinos who were educated and qualified to lead the country.
Rizal envisioned what the Philippines would be like 100 years after he wrote it. He predicted that the Philippines would be a prosperous and independent nation with a strong economy, a well-educated population, and a government that was responsive to the needs of its people. He believed that the Philippines could be only achieved through independence if its people were united and committed to the cause of freedom.
So how does Rizal's vision of the Philippine A Century Hence compare to the reality of our lives today? Are we living up to his ideals or have we fallen short? To help us answer these questions, we have invited two special guests to join us today. Please welcome Ms. Fritzy Castul and Ms. Jessica Wigan, the professor of Isabela State University campus, who have a deep understanding about the life and works of Rizal. Thank you for joining us today.
Let's start by discussing Rizal's vision for the Philippines a century hence. How accurate do you think his predictions were?
I'm Miss Castulo. Well, we can say in some ways, Rizal predictions were quite accurate. The Philippines did eventually gain independence from Spain, and we have made significant progress in terms of economic development and education. However, there are also many areas where we have fallen short of Rizal ideas. Corruption remains a major problem in our government, and inequality is still a pervasive issue. We also continue to struggle with foreign domination, whether it be from the United States or China.
Yes, you're right. Corruption was already a prevalent issue in the Philippines a century ago. It remained to be a key problem that the country is facing today. The government has passed several laws and established institutions to combat corruptions. But cases of corruptions and unethical practices continue to make headlines. And the political stability. The Philippines underwent several political changes a century ago, from being a colony of Spain to become an American Commonwealth. And the country has gained independence since then, but political stability is still a concern. Issues such as political dynasties, electoral fraud, and lack of power decentralization continue to hinder the country's progress toward better governance. And also social inequality that was already apparent in the Philippines a century ago, with the widening gap between the rich and poor. Today, the issues remain, with the country being one of the most unequal in the world. Access to quality education, healthcare, and basic services remain as challenges for many Filipinos, while the wealthy continue to enjoy their privileges. Several changes have taken place in the Philippines over the past century. There are still several issues that remain relevant today. These problems required continued attention, commitment, and action from the government and society to address and overcome. That's a good point. Rizal was very concerned about the influence of foreign powers on the Philippines. How do you think we can address these issues today?
I think it's important for us to be vigilant and to assert our sovereignty as a nation. We need to be aware of the ways in which foreign powers may be trying to exert their influence on us, whether it be through economic or political means. At the same time, we also need to be open to engaging with other countries and learning from their experiences. We can't isolate ourselves from the rest of the world, but we also can't allow ourselves to be dominated by outside forces.
Yes, at the same time, Rizal predicted that the Philippines would become major player in the global economy. He saw the potential for the country to become a hub for trade and commerce, and he believed that the Filipinos should take advantage of their strategic location and natural resources. That's a great point. Rizal was also very concerned about the need for education and the development of a strong national identity. How do you think we can continue to build on these ideals today?
Education is still a critical issue in the Philippines, and we need to continue to invest in our schools and universities. We also need to ensure that our education system is inclusive and accessible to all Filipinos, regardless of their background or socio-economic
Thank you, Ms.
status.
Wigan, for sharing your insights with
In
us
terms
today.
of national
Before we wrap up,
identity,
do you have any
I
final
think
thoughts on
it's
Rizal's
important
legacy legacy
for
and
us
his
to
relevance to our lives
celebrate
today?
our diversity as a nation, while also recognizing the common values and aspirations that unite us. We need to be proud of our heritage and our culture, but we also need to be open to new ideas and perspectives.
Thank you, Ms. Wigan, for sharing your insights with us today. Before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts on Rizal's legacy and his relevance to our lives today?
I think Rizal's legacy is still very much alive in the Philippines today. His ideas about freedom, justice, and national identity continue to inspire us. And his writings remain a powerful
I have learned a lot about the
reminder
Philippines in the
of
past
struggle
century.
and sacrifice
The
that
Philippines has
our
experienced
ancestors
significant
made to
economic
achieve
growth in recent
independence.
years, driven by strong
At the same
performance in
time,
industries
we
such as
also need
tourism,
to recognize
business process,
that Rizal was a
outsourcing,
product of
and
his time
remittances.
and
You're right.
that his
And
ideas
also,
may not
the
always
country
be
has also
applicable to
made
our current
strides in terms of
situation.
social development
We need
with improvements in areas
to be
such as
critical and
education, health,
reflective in our
and puberty
engagement
reduction.
with his work,
The
and we
Philippines
need
has
to
a rich
continue
cultural
to
heritage
strive
and diverse
towards
population
that
with a mix of
ideas
indigenous
that he
cultures and
espoused.
influences from its
Thank you for
history
joining
as a
us
Spanish
today.
and American colony.
Insightful. You're right, partner. The country has faced challenges in recent years, including natural disaster, political turmoil, and ongoing conflict in certain regions.
Despite these challenges, the Philippines has demonstrated resilience and a determination to overcome adversity, with many Filipinos working to build a better future for themselves and their country. Rizal's vision of a prosperous and independent Philippines is still relevant today, and his ideas continue to inspire Filipinos to strive for a better future. We hope that this podcast has given you a deeper appreciation of Jose Rizal's life and works, and we encourage you to read more about this remarkable man to this day. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to our podcast on Jose Rizal's The Philippine in a Century Hence. We hope you find it informative and thought-provoking. If you have any comments or feedback, please feel free to reach out to us on our social media. And don't forget to tune in next time for another episode of our podcast.